And we're live.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Rattle Cruise podcast, where we dig deep to reach high. And of course, it's always progress through action. I'm your co host, Payron Baxter.
I'm your co-host, Raum Sandoval. How y'all doing?
And of course, we are the Rattle Cruise podcast. Folks, if this is your first time listening or your 22nd time listening, we ask you to like, share, subscribe, and tell everybody you know about it. We are growing. We grow off your referrals, your recommendations, and your shares. So anything y'all can do to help us will help us keep making sure we keep giving folks this realness, this honesty. And yeah, we'll keep this train going. Ron, we are 571 days till the midterms.
As I say the same thing every time, it's right around the corner.
Right around the corner.
But as we were just talking before we got on, I don't know if will we make it to midterms? Will they be as impactful and as meaningful by the time it gets there? We've got to deal a lot with gerrymandering and disenfranchisement, all kinds of stuff. They're making it have birth certificates. So that means to me is that we have to overcome all these extra hurdles, and fit winning by with 51% is not going to cut it. Have to plan
Hmm.
a landslide and make up for all of this disenfranchisement that continues to happen. It's
Right.
upwards of maybe 3 million voters were disenfranchised this past election compared to previous. So it's going to take a sustained movement starting now to overcome that.
And it's only going to get worse. We're going to get into that later on, folks. But yeah, the Republican Party is not slowing down. It is all gas, no brakes. And if you're not paying attention, that's why you come to us to give it to you real, to let you know what is going on. At least the stuff that will absolutely overwhelmingly impact the Black and brown communities and the poor communities and everybody who's just basically not a wealthy, white, straight Christian man. But yeah, we're gonna get into that later on this episode. But yeah, man. First of all, dude, you have been blowing up the interwebs, man. I couldn't make it this past Tuesday, but folks, if you were not around or if you didn't get a chance to catch it, my co-host Rom. I mean, Rom, it's rare. Okay, it's rare that I get secondhand embarrassment for people. It's rare. And let me tell you something, brother. I got secondhand embarrassment for the Monroe mayor, Robert Burns. Um, but I think I mean, I'm not a damsel in distress, nor are you, but I think you defended the show. You defended our integrity and our ability to connect with people and to inform them. It was strong. So, folks, if you guys, we're gonna play here in a second here, but Rom, a few weeks ago we had on Supreme Court Justice Anita Earls, who was talking about equity and talking about leveling the playing field for folks who were disenfranchised for centuries and the history of the disenfranchisement and the oppression and the repression. And as you guys remember, if you guys were listening in an episode, Robert Burns did not like that. He was quite upset and called us some left wing extremists, probably just the N word in his mind. Those three DEIs and that DEI lawyer on the call. But and Rom, you chose to take it to him, man. So what inspired you to do that? I mean, I know you don't back down. You always knuck if they buck, but what inspired you, brother?
Well, listen. First off, like when I got wind of this mayor in the neighboring city, I see him as a threat. This is MAGA, hardcore MAGA, saying anti-D, all the stuff he said spewed in his podcast. So he had a post up before we even finished our episode.
Crazy.
And it's still trying. They're still working. He's still working on 20 views on that his podcast, but and we think we have more in that in that podcast, like by like triple or quadruple live.
and
Anyways,
and growing.
yeah, exactly. So I honestly listened to. I took the time to listen to Councilwoman Julie Thompson, who I didn't really know.
Yes,
I don't. I still are getting to know these people. Somebody
for
had
sure.
posted. Somebody had posted. Hey, she posted a podcast. I listened to it.
Hmm.
She very clearly explained why she voted to table the vote on this drag adult entertainment, and why
Right.
she voted the way she did on
Hmm.
DEI. And she explained it very clearly in 10 minutes. And I was like, okay, I understand that more, even though I was there at that meeting last week. And so then I was like, that's pretty good. Then a few days later, he posted his, I get wind of his, and I listened to it. It's 20 minutes long. And 1 minute in, he's going off on DEI, he's going off on, extremists, and this is a battle, and very divisive. I mean, just like straight away, right? And just name calling. There's no content, and I actually had GPT analyze their two speeches for like divisiveness, and his was like a 10 out of 10. Uh,
Oh wow, really? Oh,
yeah,
it's
and
ChatGPT is pretty interesting. Oh my god.
yeah, it can be interesting. You gotta be careful how you analyze those things because it can have bias too. So you want to make sure you try to
Mm,
eliminate that. So I thought it was interesting because I like to just
right.
experiment and see what it says. But anyways, yeah, I think it's silly that Monroe, all these people, and it's the same folks, but they come out and they're talking about drag, and you would think there was like drag people, drag popping out the bushes, twerking in the church parking lot because with kids, selling candy or something. Like that's
Right.
how I mean, you would think that's what it was, and so it's kind of ridiculous, and they're very dramatic, and he's using it as a wedge issue to take it to the election, so he can say, "Oh, look how these people voted," so on and so forth. This is what I'm defending children and protecting children, and they're really just hiding behind children to hiding their bigotry behind protecting children.
Yep.
So yeah, if you're gonna call me extremist, first time in my life I've been called an extremist. But I told him like, yo,
No, Robbie, they don't call you extremists from the shop.
I told him I'll be that. I'll be yeah. I'll play. Let you shop. Let me play
Yeah,
the
yeah.
clip.
Just go ahead and just go ahead and run that.
All right, here we go.
Mm. Correct. I love the beep. I always love the beep. The
So
beep is just so symbolic of like,
yeah.
I killed a man.
So the what I want to do is I want to not have a sheet or my phone and up there, but when you have a time box of like 2 minutes and 3 minutes, and I got like I know what I want to say, I like that's why that beep went off. Like as soon as I'm done, because I try to get it in as quick as I can, but that's my goal. The problem is like I have a lot to say when he talk when this like I just if I could get it done, but he says something and it's like, anyways.
There's just so much, but
Ah,
folks, and like what I love is always the me. See, my wife knows I'm an ad lib guy. When it comes to music, I'm always like, whatever T Pain's is, ooh, oh, I'm always whatever's in the background. So like the ad libs of what's going on here are the people behind you in that video. So I'm looking at previous guest, Steven Steagal. I'm looking at this red, white, and blue, you know, straight out of central casting MAGA lady behind you wearing, the protect the kids shirt, and she's like over
well,
here.
I
Go
so
ahead.
I think that I think they might not be. I don't know which side they're on because it was a little bit confused. I think they were trying to say that they do not allow 18 under 18 at East Franks, but I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. I was a little
Okay,
confused.
okay.
But
Well, I'll say this: when you were talking about like the DEI and like the trumped up stuff, she was like rolling her eyes, like law. So that's why I was like, okay, so, but maybe I'm wrong. Sorry.
yeah, I don't know. But anyways, shout out to Kara, shout out to Meg because you have people, you go in as a group, you get an extra minute if you have like 2 to 5 people, right? So you normally get 2 minutes. Like I was able to get
Yep.
3. And then if you have 6 people, then you could get 5 minutes. That's what I need probably, or that's what I need. That's what I would like.
That's what you want.
but
That's what you
but you know
deserve.
what? You know what? I probably don't need it. And so the other thing there, I did run into a mother and her daughter, and it was actually the mother of the student, one of the students. We posted a clip on Facebook from the Union County Public School meeting, Board of Education meeting last week.
Yes, yes.
And he slammed down his hand when he
On the
was
podium.
passionate.
Right. Fuck that
Reverend
podium.
Bitian was mad about the podium getting slammed. Da da da
First of all,
da.
I love that you call him Bentian. Like it's Benching, but you know what? Like, yeah, fuck
What?
that. It's Bentian. Yeah.
Benching. I'm not. I don't need
No,
to
no, no,
unintentionally
Bentian.
disrespect. It was, but
Uh,
anyways, because you know
I
what,
shouldn't have said anything. I
Robert.
shouldn't have said
Because you know
anything.
what, the mayor can't say my name. But anyways,
What did he say this time? He's like, I can't even read this crap. I can't. I didn't even hear anything Kendrick Lamar said.
But here's the thing, and so they're those students over there, they spoke out on they wanting the school board to be proactive with ICE potentially
Yep.
coming into schools, and the school board's like, that's not happening. Don't, like, why are you making this an issue? We've said that we're gonna listen to our lawyer, and we're gonna do the Union County sheriff decide, right? And they don't have to. Like, that's completely optional because it's well within their right to say, if you don't have a warrant, then you're not getting into school. We need to protect the privacy of children. We're going to protect the children. But no, they choose to follow the Union County sheriff, who's pretty much said that they would go into a school and do whatever they want. That ICE is
Right.
asking them to do. That makes no sense without a warrant. And so a lot of school districts will say, like, look, we will follow warrants, but we're not just going to let police ICE come into schools and look at children's, look at records, just grab whoever they want without their parent, which makes sense, right? And so here you are saying that we don't need to be proactive about it, and then you got these people at the Monroe City Council saying be proactive about we don't want new businesses coming in throwing all kids drag shows and all age drag shows, and like, I mean, you would think, like I said, like what drag show, there's only like one I know of in Monroe, right? And they don't allow 18 and under. So I like, and it's like, if just let like the parents can, like, if you don't want your kids there, then don't let them. And like, I don't have interest in it. I don't want to have my kids at a drag show. And but so they also want to define certain things as like, oh, if you dress up as a woman, like, for like a theater, or not a woman, if you dress up as the opposite sex, right, opposite gender or whatever, in a theater, like, that would be considered adult entertainment the way it's written. And so, like, and then they kind of go through and say like, here's the legality of what you're trying to do, and so there's and it doesn't they can't even do anything in Monroe. So one
Right.
side wants to be proactive about something that doesn't exist, and then here kids are asking, be proactive about something we see happening in Los Angeles, in Chicago, and all these districts. And it's only a matter of time before it happens in Union County,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Right. And so, like, it's all in the same same area, and it's very hypocritical. It's the same crowd, and so it's that's where we're at.
Yeah.
But it was explained very clearly why why they're not voting on this, and the ordinance, like it doesn't make sense because they can't. And said they said go to Raleigh, and Mayor Pro Tem Dodson and the Mayor Burns. It's like they don't even know what they can do within their role as mayor and Mayor Pro Tem. Like, how do you not know what you can do? Like, they're like, well, it seems like we could just research sounds like your job before you come in here making a fool of yourself, right? Like, like, how do you not know that what you can and can't do? Your lawyer's sitting next to you, and I know you have closed sessions. I know you can call them. You got all these things. You don't have to wait till these meetings. So get out of here. Your plan is to continue dragging this on, and they shut it down. They're not going to drag it on. If you want to bring up something new now, you want to do it a different angle, then go do it. I guess it's a waste of time probably too, because you probably won't get it right next time either. But that's how it works. And I'm sitting here like I'm figuring this out better than y'all, just listening for. And it's like what I don't understand. So um
I mean, but to your point,
crocodile
I mean, the,
tears.
the fear they have is almost like they're afraid of Dragula.
Like I said, like,
They're afraid of
anyways.
Dragula, right? I mean, but I just, conservatives, and I know folks they're still in this moment. A lot of folks that are palm colored are really in this moment, still trying to um, wrap their head around what's going on, right? And a lot of black people and folks that people of color, like we've been dealing with this for decades on decades upon decades on decades. It's just now rearing its ugly head, for white people. And we're like, there's always been a Mayor Burns in our lives. There's always been. He might not have been your mayor. He might have been your boss. He might have been your postman. He might have been your principal. He might have been something like that. So like these types of people that have no forward vision, who fail upwards, or how somehow there's a stroke of luck, like a coin flip that gives them the reins of power, is something that we're quite familiar with because we understand that people like this have, again, their best day is yesterday. And the history in this country of there used to be laws in New York City. There was laws in the late '80s that if they found a man wearing, or someone who presents as a man wearing three at three articles of clothing that were not deemed the correct gender, you can get arrested. These are the laws they want to go back to, and this is why one of the things that I like to add to the show is the historic foundation of some of this stuff. Because if you, as James Baldwin said, if you don't know what happened behind you, you're not gonna know what's going on around you. And there's folks out there trying to fight this and compromise with this. And this is why I'm unrepentant. And when I'm talking to these type of people, or when I'm talking about these type of people, because there is no sort of resolution. These are abnormal people. And the thing about abnormal people, they know that the normal people who have empathy and compassion and kindness, that us who are more naive are willing to wait for them to come back around. I call this like the Mitch McConnell strategy, where folks on the Democratic Party in the Senate, they will normalize Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell's a very abnormal man before he became Glitch McConnell, right? He knew that he could be as right wing, as partisan, as divisive, as as thieving and stealing seats as possible, and he knew that his Democratic allies would say, well, I can go talk to Mitch, and he'll come around. Abnormal people who have a self-loathing ideology, like a white supremacist ideology, which all this stuff is, they expect their compatriots across the political aisle to eventually wait them out. And they'll say, well, and then that is their weapon against folks who are actively trying to see progress, or they think that they're fighting for progress. But the thing about it is, folks like us, we can see right through it. We can see right through a Mitch McConnell. We can see right through a Mayor Burns, and we know that there is nothing else there. I mean, you heard his podcast, and God bless you for listening to that 20-minute, whatever that was. But like, I could only imagine like blood wasn't shooting out your ears by the time you got to the end of it. Would you have it on like 2 speed?
No.
You listen to a regular speed? Oh, ain't no
Yeah.
way. Ain't no way around it. Ain't no way, boy. Ain't no way. I'd have been up there like, listen, woke mob and DEI and CRT and ain't no way. But he has nothing to offer. So all he can do is try to find the thin edge of the wedge to slide in between people because he cannot offer anybody growth, prosperity, happiness, joy, or any sort of future. So the best day for a conservative is always yesterday, and it is pathetic.
Well,
And
and
I hope he takes you up on your offer. Sorry, I hope he takes up your offer. And I would love to get down to brass tacks with Mayor Burns.
yeah, and I'll send an email follow. I'm gonna send the follow up email to him tonight, and
Y'all hear that? So if you're listening, you heard Raum.
and yeah, it just seems like, especially when you're in the seat of the mayor, like if you're gonna bring something, come correct with, like, know what you're bringing to the table. And it's, he brought something haphazard. He heard it at the Republican Party platform for North Carolina, and then he's like, I'm gonna bring it in, and then he didn't have the information. That's why they postponed. That's part of the reason why they postponed it. Councilwoman Thompson, it's like, well, okay, like, tell me what it is. There's some new information. Well, nothing would ever. He never bought anything new. So then she was like, okay, we've already discussed this. So, anyways, on the job training,
This is
very similar to the current administration. So, anyways,
yeah, and this is this is my last piece on this, but this is the local articulation and example of white mediocrity. These are people like the thing about like white mediocrity. They don't have to actively try to learn anything, right? Because they're right because they're a white man, and that's what he's holding on to. That's
mm-hmm.
what Dotson was a part of that same town hall I told you about when that girl was knocking on the glass. Like he was a part of that too. He didn't have an answer for anything.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike Jones, ran circles around him. But Dotson won because Dotson ran on the same Republican platform, and folks just vote for ours. They don't vote for policies, plans, or people. They just vote for the letter. Because they know that even though they're poor, even though they're sick, even though they're uneducated, the hierarchy and that strata will stay in place.
Yeah,
So
and their fear is that the ignorance will be challenged too. It's kind of very similar to the man with the truck. We
correct.
still got to post that from last week, but it's,
Yes.
and I've had conversations like this my whole life with folks like Burns, and a lot of times, sometimes it's enlightening for them. Sometimes they will dig in harder. But it's up to them.
It's up to them.
And so one other thing I was going to say, but I forgot what it was. I ran into on this subject real quick, Bob Yancek, who
Yeah.
I was trying to see.
He,
I was trying to see
he
who
ran against Burns.
I was trying to see who lost the coin flip. And I researched him a month or two ago. Looked at his website, and
Yep.
seems pretty, even keeled, level headed, moderate.
Yeah. Right.
So
He would be a lot better than Robert Burns. That's what's all that matters.
yes. But I did get a chance to meet him, and we wouldn't mind having him on one day, maybe chat with him. It's just trying to see like who's around and what they're about.
Yeah.
It's very easy to just have these conversations. It doesn't have to be DEI extremists. Yeah, like, there's a war on us. Like, there's a war on you.
But in their minds, they are in 100-year war. I think it was Roland Martin who just said that. I think it was yesterday. He said that, and these folks mind these fever pitched, these dyed in the wool folks, and they are so hopped up on propaganda, Rom,
Mm-hmm.
that like that's why like this whole idea of like, oh, you can meet them in the middle. You can't, man. They're very far gone. And the most you can do is beat their ass at the polls.
Mm-hmm.
You could beat their ass with your ballots, beat their ass with your votes. That's all you can do,
Mm-hmm.
because this whole like, oh, what will appeal to some of these people who believe that, there's, trans Tifa and feminazis everywhere. Like they're gone. They're not even seeing, hey, there's a pothole right here. Hey, we need a stoplight. We need a stop sign. We need, to open up another clinic for people. All that doesn't matter. It's just whatever Trump says. And then when Trump changes his mind, then that also is the new plan. And then when he changes it again, then oh, it's actually this now. So these people are deluded.
Yeah, the the tariffs. All of a sudden,
Uh,
you could tell who's part of the cult. Like as soon as the tariffs came out, oh, we got to save our country. Take me to sacrifice. Oh, the markets, and we have to tank it to rebuild it,
got to, yeah.
and then it canceled it, and it was like, oh, that was a chess, that master
48 dimension chess, brother.
art of the deal.
Art of the deal. That's right. Written by Tony Schwartz, not Trump.
Anyways, so
Yeah,
what else we got?
but now moving on up to the state level. So recent news: the appeals court sided with lame Justice Riggs. Yeah, Judge Riggs, not Justice
So
Riggs. Take that back.
yeah, so let's see. On the third, this was last Thursday. This news
It's all
came
right.
out.
We ain't touch on it.
This news came out, and well, essentially they were saying they ruled that they would have 15 days to avoid having the votes thrown out, meaning they'd have to go through about 65,000 hearing the ballots, making sure that they were
Hmm.
actually these people would have to prove that they were eligible to vote. So ID, social security number.
But just
Um,
for this race, not for the rest of the race, not for the.
yeah, and so it was this ruled by a 2-1 Republican to
And one
Democrat
of them's a Negro.
appeal. Yeah, he's a Republican, and so it set off a lot
Clarence
of
Thomas.
alarm. That 15-day period did not start. I know Indivisible was ready to get to work, and then the lawyers for Riggs said, "Hold on, we're going to appeal. The 15-day hasn't started." So they did. Then they appealed to the Supreme Court, the North Carolina Supreme Court, which Allison Riggs is a part of. It's a 5-2 Supreme Court, which Riggs has recused herself from this because it's about her. I don't even know if she needed to. If the whole to me the whole the North Carolina Supreme Court should be recusing themselves from deciding who gets to sit on the Supreme Court of their own Supreme Court. Regardless, it's a 5-1 Supreme Court on this decision, but they did suspend the 15-day deadline based off of this appeal. Now look, this the whole the court system is crazy to me.
That's a word. That's a specific word to say.
But yeah, it's all this back and forth, and we're gonna be in 2026 before this thing gets solved. It feels like, um, but yeah, it's gonna be a Herculean effort if the Riggs and the Democrats have to go and get these 65,000 people to invalidate, and some of them aren't even Democrat, right? And which we know which one's not the target, but like, but like they're trying to steal this election, and it's a blueprint, and it's going to set a dangerous precedent. It's almost it's very similar at the state level to what they're doing in federal courts and what they're doing with the Supreme Court potentially being
Hmm.
compromised as well. The court system is holding on by a thread, and that is at every level. And this is
I'm
this.
actually, in a weird way, I'm glad this is happening. I'm not glad that for Allison Riggs. I mean, like, I'm glad that finally people can see what's going on. Like this, and I have to use the historical note. This has always happened. There's always been some Peckerwood judge that was, throwing out this, and black folks can't be on juries, and like all this was this is the same judicial system. This is the same judicial system that um, will allow a prosecutor to say that black people are, at the same time we're crack-addled weak people, but we're also these giant monsters that cause. I mean, this is the same legal system. There are different parts of it, right? Prosecutors, defense attorneys, appeals judges, support, but it's all the same system. And when folks are like, "This is our system holding on by a thread," it's not even our system. And I want folks to understand this. Like when we're talking about revolution, we're talking about rebirth. I don't mean like, oh, physically burn down the courthouse, but can you, for a moment, step outside of this lens of this funky ass criminal enterprise known as the United States of America, and understand that we have to imagine something better, something brighter, something different. I mean, I always tell folks, if I picked you up and took you to another planet, then I say, okay, and I take you and 30,000 people. And I say, what would you bring from America social structure to here? Like seriously, if you had a clean slate, everybody's, they're all about our age, so they've lived a good amount of time, but they are folks who are, marginalized or progressive. What would you bring? Would you say, okay, you still need to have a system where you have to pay for healthcare? It's like, no, but no, we can redo this shit. We don't need that shit. Would you
Right.
would you have a system where you can change lines and pick the voters who would vote for you? Like, no, we wouldn't. So all this shit, I'm kind of glad that it's coming out. I'm not glad that it's happening because it's going to have deleterious effects on our society. But people need to. This is why, as we talked about last week with the protest slash parade, I don't want people being happy. I don't want people finding joy when they go to those things. You should not be finding joy. You should be upset because Black people have had to live with this anger and this frustration for centuries, and we were always told this doesn't exist. Systemic racism doesn't exist. Oppression doesn't exist. Allison Riggs is recognizing right now. She may not recognize for what it is, but this is systemic oppression.
Yeah. I think kind of going back to during the state of the, it's not called whatever it's called, the State of the Union, whatever it's called, the
The
first year.
joint address to Congress.
Thank you. But when they were having Roland Martin and
Yep.
Angela
Right.
Right, thank you. When they were having their State of Our Union and
State of the
the
people.
State of the People,
I'll just keep
the
finishing your sentences, man. That's
yeah,
all.
thank you, thank you. The feeling I got, and it was, it was a very diverse, mostly Black
Oh yeah.
guest, but the feeling I got from that was like, let's put our energy into rebuilding because we're going to be starting from the ashes, right? We're going to be having to rebuild,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it contrasts into like, let's fight for what we have versus let's rebuild. And I think that that's where a lot of Black folks' energy is right now because
Yep.
they weren't out there, and I think that you know Black folks are great at organizing, like some of
Yep.
the best. And so if we're organizing on what we want the world to look like, I think that could be a very effective thing, right? And then that might be worth fighting for more than upholding these systems that we know
Bingo.
were not built for us, and that are really are meant to resist us, right? So I think it makes a good point. I think that what you're saying makes a really good point. And to the people that I will say one thing that irks me is that the people that are out there, it's still a very small percentage of people, and these are the folks that are actually trying to
Out where?
to do something out at these protests, or like the protest last week, right? The hands off, for
Oh yeah, yeah,
example.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was like
I
almost all
mean, it's
white. It was
certain
almost
cities
all
like
white.
like Boston had a lot of people.
Mhm.
LA had a lot of people. I mean, I guess it depends on
But
demographically.
what I'm saying is like these are the folks that are at least getting off their butt, and not saying that there's not other people doing things in other ways, because I know there are. And then Black people always say stay at home, but there's a lot of people like if all you did was vote, like you don't get to just say
No, no.
like you don't get to just say like, oh, I put
I'm
in work.
tired.
You don't get to
I'm
say
s-
that,
I'm s-
like.
you sure
But
don't.
I
Sure
know
don't.
that, but I will say that, like, especially the ones that are on the line in the internet sphere or whatever, and Black women, I know a lot of them were putting in work and organizing in so many different ways, and
Right.
so and that will continue. But I think the way that they're organizing is just mad different than like we're going to be out on the front lines resisting, standing up for upholding this. And I think that that's I do because I do think that at some point it's going to be this regime is going to just start terrorizing Black folks. I mean, like in
Yeah.
every single way possible. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to be rescuing white farmers. They're going to be rescuing white, like, that's what I truly believe. I truly believe that they're going to be doing all kinds of nefarious things, and I think they're going to be doing violent things to Black folks in both mentally, physically, and they already are. I mean, they always have, right? But like, I'm
Right.
talking about like on some
But
next level.
to a degree, but that's why these white people didn't know what they were doing on the fifth.
Mhm.
They have no demands. They are not against the system that inevitably creates these outcomes, like a Donald Trump, a Judge Griffin, a Tim Scott, or who. I mean, you name your right
Mhm.
wing, aficionado, right? Like they still believe in this system.
Mhm.
The thing is, and the thing is that the system was built that way. It was built to give them the easy route, because when you give them the easy route, they can be mediocre. right? We don't have to worry about getting education, and you're always going to get all the A's. You good. You know, if you get, we make sure you get the job, you don't get all the money in that job. You know, if you get pulled over by the cops, all good. If you get, you go to the doctor's office, they're not going to say that you have a higher pain tolerance. You know, you're going to be all good. If you go into a job interview, you're not going to have to walk in being like, I hope the motherfuckers ain't racist. Like all of that allows you to become soft. And when you have generations of that, when they really lay down, the hammer on you, you don't have the muscles to fight back. Now, black people, we've always had to do that. You know, when they said you couldn't drive, we walked. When they gave us, rotten peaches, we made cobbler. When they didn't give us the cuts on the hog, we made chitlins. When they took our drums, we clapped. Like that is who we are.
Yeah.
They've never had to do that. So
Yeah.
now they're still trying to kind of make some sort of mental gymnastics of why this is happening, and we're like, you know what? We've been hosed, beat, burned, hung, and fought to liberate ourselves, and it was not to be a part of a democracy; it was to be free,
Hmm.
and we still voted for all of our freedoms.
Hmm.
So after November 5th, that is the reason why black people are like, you know what, y'all got it.
Yeah, and I think that for the organizers especially, I think they obviously want people to join the movement, and these people are getting their feet wet. But they have to be willing to learn and listen to, because we could go in and say, "I told you so." So many different people can go in and say, "I told you so." Like, but are y'all willing to listen and understand why things are the way they are?
Right.
And it's 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 um it's something it's going to have to be sustained and keep getting it through, that these people, like these 2 hour protests every 2 weeks or every month, is not really going to. I don't think it's going, because even still, like, think about it though. They had this 2 hour protest, and some of this MAGA and all these people's heads were popping off. They don't necessarily say, like, but if you're sitting there and your first reaction to these protests is like Photoshop, you're getting paid by George Soros, like these people, like all this made up stuff, they're threatened by these protests, right? By a 2 hour protest, right? So imagine if it was sustained. Imagine if it was longer. Imagine if people were just taken to the streets every day. Imagine if this was going on all day. Imagine if they were, um, yeah, just will. And so, like, those type of things, I think even just protest from a protesting standpoint will continue to grow, because they always said, I keep
But
hearing about this 3% of, I don't know
yeah,
if I believe,
yeah, that's like an old thing. Yeah, from
but
if 3% of the country riles up, we take it. But the thing is, who's a part of the 3%? On top of that, what are y'all demands? They don't have any demands.
Mhm.
All these people have no demands. Even the most progressive liberals.
Well,
Again, I
Democrat. I
love
mean, even Democratic leadership doesn't even have demands, right? So, like, well, who's
right. Well,
who's
again,
leading?
most of those are white people. These are people that still believe in these institutions. I'm talking about like, what do you demand from this government? And I always tell people that, and it always stops them in their tracks because, as Frederick Douglass said, power concedes nothing without demand. And most of us don't have any demands. We just don't like Donald Trump. We don't like the way he says stuff. And yeah, he might actually do some negative things, but we still believe that the system is working. We still believe that it is a fortuitous thing for as many people as possible. And it's like it's not. It's not. You have to demand. I'm getting worked up over here. You have to demand that you're treated fairly. You have to demand, you have to assert your humanity. You have to make sure people do not harm your community. You have to make sure you have access to healthcare. You have to make sure your children are taught properly. If you are not demanding those things, you just have a bad attitude for
Yeah.
the moment. And the thing is, black folks, I mean, I was in the street under Obama for certain things. I was on the street during Trump was there. I was on the street when Biden was there because I am against America at times. And that's what you had to understand. It's the institutions that will automatically produce these outcomes, as I said earlier. So if you don't have any demands about what the fuck is going on because you just want to feel good for the Saturday that you're out there, you will not get anything done. And dare I say, what came of it?
Well, I still think exactly, but I still think one of the best things Indivisible and some of these other organizations could do is have a training, not on protesting, because I don't like. I think some of the I saw some were saying like, "Oh, you guys have your number, your lawyer's number written down, and you should have your
I
phones
mean, you
off."
thought they were going
It
into like
ain't
gas
that.
chambers.
It ain't that serious. I mean, it ain't that serious, yeah. Because
It ain't that
but
real.
there are protests. Like for example, when Black Lives Matters, like there was trucks
Right.
In Chicago that were like intercepting the cellular. So like all instead of going through a normal cell tower, it'd be going
Hmm.
through a listening cell tower. So data, your phone calls were all being listened to. Drones flying over, facial recognition. And there were situations where things would pop up. So that's the type of thing that you train for. But what I think would be super effective right now is training on like intervention, like cult intervention. Like how do you intervene, stage of intervention for your family who is gone, or how do you talk to your family member, how do you talk to your spouse about their MAGA, their bigotry, whatever it may be, and get them out. I think that would be more effective because that's the front line for a lot of folks. If you can change your sister, your brother, your mother, your father, your kids, because I've actually ran into a few people when I was canvassing and just said, my son, I don't even know how to talk to him. Like I work like he's gone, and I said about 3 or 4 times I heard that conversation. I had that conversation, and that's when I
I have the
started getting a little
conversation
bit
every
worried.
day.
And so I was
I,
like,
I have that exact conversation every day with white people. But
it's that.
this is what scares me, and I hear you. And I love your optimism,
Mm-hmm.
incoming precinct chair. Heard you were on the training, so love that too. But this is what concerns me, and this is why again, when you know history, you don't get shocked about stuff. You actually get more frustrated because people don't want to listen to you. But what happened, what was frustrating, and what is concerning, is that people, specifically white people, people who have power, people who have privilege, instead of hearing what you're saying and the idea, and I think it's a fantastic idea. I have not one time about Ron, that's a stupid idea. I think that's a really good idea, actually. They have to agree that that is what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
James Baldwin once said, not everything face can be changed, but but no, not everything face can be changed, but to change something, you have to face it, right? So you have to face it. You have to see, okay, these people are in and for years I had this quote that I used to post on all my Instagrams and all these comments. This is what, this is, I think Biden was still in office. He had just been in office, but all during Trump, I was posting this. It's this quote that I would just copy and paste it in my into comments. And is we are witnessing a a transnational white Christian nationalist movement that is going to use authoritarian and fascist tactics to install their theocratic apartheid rule. For years, I would just comment that, just copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste. It doesn't matter if it was about the courts, it doesn't matter if it was about police killings, it doesn't matter if it was about getting rid of CRT. You're being hyperbolic. All right. And it's like, so my thing is, folks have to be willing to accept that. And then once they accept it, be willing to say, I'm going to forego all the things that I think that I know. Because it's hard to say that you, like with the way you've been raised and you're 50 years old or you're 60 years old and you're white, that everything you've been taught's a lie. But that's a lie that was on the backs of black, brown, indigenous people that we've been trying to tell you about. So
So
you have to be willing to say, like, you know what, my dad is in a cult. It's in a cult on the precipice. No, it's actually fell off the cliff. It's down the drain, and it's a suicide cult, and it's going to take us all out. And unless the people who have proximity to those people are willing to create pressure, are willing to have the hard conversations, or willing to create their own barriers and boundaries with those people, but these are the same people. They're still going to go have dinner with them. They're still going to go have Thanksgiving dinner with these people. And they're not going to say, no, what you're doing is oppressing other people because individual actions have universal consequences, dad, husband, son, cousin, neighbor, boss, golf partner. That's the reality.
So what would your curriculum, let's say, because indivisible host groups or whoever me, I would say indivisible because they're the ones that are most visible to me. That's why I'm sorry, like I always
Yeah.
bring them up. But like as an
No, no,
example,
no.
what would the curriculum for you be? Let's say a 3-part series, week to week to week. Like what would that look like? What would week 1 look like for you? What would week 2 look like? What would week 3
That's a
look
good
like?
question. I mean, honestly, I think week one would have to just be leaning off of our friend Christy from last week. It's just like, again, why do y'all think this is happening? Like what, first start there. We got to start for what they think is going on, and then show them how, honestly, what you believe is going on is not even what's going on, because, again, we have chapter and verse study and scholarship that will prove this has been happening for centuries. It just wasn't happening to you. And we can show you how we survived it, and we can show you how what it's propped up on. Racism is a team sport. It requires more than just George Wallace or Donald Trump. It requires everybody underneath it. It requires people in your neighborhood. I always tell folks, everybody wasn't in the SS. Everybody wasn't in the Confederacy. There were people back home who were shining boots, baking pies, sending money, giving prayers, and keeping up their thoughts and their rhetoric back home. That is a system. That is a system that doesn't allow you to see white people being harmed. A system that will only tell you the best people that do things are white men. A system that will tell you that black people are inherently criminals. A system that will tell you all Latino people are in gangs. That is a system that 90% of lawyers are white people. A system where 90 something percent of all judges are white people. A system where 90% of Oscars and Grammys go to white people. A system that will, I mean, even in its entertainment aspect, is always meant to keep a core group of people protected. So until they can understand, well, Perry, that's not really politics. You're talking about like music, and it's all the same thing, because that's those are political choices. Is to keep the hierarchy and standards of this country going. And the thing is, all of us, like, we have never had the luxury to believe in those things. This is why they said you can't go to school. We had to create HBCUs. Oh, you can't go to a doctor's office. We created black hospitals. Oh, you can't be in media. This is where they created the Chicago Defender, the Pittsburgh Courier, both of our hometowns, right? Two of the first black papers, Jet, Ebony, Essence. This is where this comes from. So when you all you have is just the ease of life, you are going to be mediocre. Just going back to my earlier point. So, I mean, this day one has to be, where are we in your mind? And then day two will have to be, okay, well, you have to kind of forget all that shit, because none of that shit is real. And we've had to work and toil, and we never really wanted to sit at your lunch counters or go to your schools. We wanted our shit. We wanted our money. Brown versus Board of Education wasn't about black kids wanting to go to white schools. It was that we pay taxes to this government, and we should have access to one damn bus. Integration was for white people. That was the white man's solution to our problem. That's not what we wanted. We wanted our equal buyout of that shit, or our equal take, whatever you want to call it. So this is the long tail of this shit coming to fruition. Donald Trump is a biological outcome of whiteness, because whiteness has no language, it has no history, it has no food, it has no music, it has no culture. It doesn't. In fact, they'll say, well, I'm German. It can't be German. It can't be British. It can't be French. It can't be Scottish. It can't be Irish. In fact, they have to negotiate that away to punch the ticket to be white.
Mm-hmm.
It's an erasure of all that. There is no culture. And until they can accept that, they can't accept what's happening. There was a gentleman that died, I believe, in February. He was one of the foremost. This is before anti-racism work was big. His name was Neely Fuller Jr., and he died, I'm going to say in February, maybe in March. But Neely Fuller, one of his quotes that I love is, until you can understand white supremacy and how it works, everything you think you know will only confuse you. And these people who believe themselves to be white, because again, whiteness is not real. But when they call themselves, I'm just a white woman, I'm just white parent, and I'm progressive, but I'm just white. What they're saying is, I still believe that I'm better than you. because inherently white was created in contrast to black. As James Baldwin said, you had to create an N-word. They had to create an N-word to excuse why they were enslaving people. Because logically it doesn't make sense. So you're telling me these ain't nothing but a bunch of low life, dirty, filthy, violent people that you had to go steal out of Africa? It doesn't even make sense. It doesn't make sense. So they have to create this other. That's also what whiteness needs. It needs a constant other. First, it was the savage. Then it was the enslaved people, the captives. Then it was we can't free them because they're gonna rape your women. And it continues on. And now it's the woke DEI mob. This is why Robert Burns is holding on to a legacy that does not even exist. But it's a bad inheritance for him.
Mm-hmm.
So to be honest, man, like they got to get down to brass tacks. This is why black folks are like, hey, y'all got it. Y'all we're listen. For 400 years, you weren't trying to listen to black women, and that's just the reality. And people say, "Well, Payron, you're getting black people to not show up." This isn't a Payron thing. This is a nationwide. I mean, how many videos have you seen about black people aren't going to? They don't know me. You know what I mean? Like the idea that I'm the one telling these people to not do this. My mom, who's 60, going on 63 years old, was like, these white folks got it. That wasn't because Payron told her that. It's because she grew up not a full human being. The oldest black person in this country who was born with full civil rights is 60 years old. My mom is 60, will be 63 years old in July, which means my mother was not born a full person. And even if she didn't realize that at 3 years old, my daughter's age right now, she remembers, she understands that through history.
Right.
So they don't give a damn about all this, like, all hands off. Look, it was hands on for us. Black women were getting raped in the back of cop cars in Birmingham, Alabama, while people walked past in 1955.
Yeah.
So that is the history that Robert Burns and all these folks are still reenacting like a Confederate reenactment.
Yeah, I think that somebody has to teach. I think, and and it's a wide spectrum, right? There are people who understand it. There are white people who understand this, but I think that it needs to be, especially the people who are involved, they need to understand this very clearly so that they can propagate this information and actually get other people to understand. Because, and I think somebody has to teach them, like whether, for example, like Christy, that's what her job is to like, okay, let me break it down for you. And they need to be willing to listen to you and understand, like, okay, because how many times, like, you could go and say, I told you so. You could probably go and say that like 50 dozen times, right? But whoever it may be, and even like, everything from like the chants and the how to protest. Like, I just think that there's just, just so much that to educate right now, and that's the least that can be done behind the scenes, right? Because I don't know, it's just, are they just gonna keep having these raids?
Yes.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Okay.
Okay. I know a lot of people are expecting that.
Time will tell.
I get it.
I think until it gets too bad.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
eventually.
Yeah, that's the.
So I think there will be a critical mass moment, but there's going to be a lot of people be thrown under the bus, and a lot of cheeks will be turned.
You're saying it's not going to be their own doing, right? By like, oh, all this, like, this is just how we build up. You think it's going to be a catalyst of like some shit got worse, and then maybe it'll escalate. Because we were talking about this shit about when we first started this podcast in December. Like, okay, y'all got to get ready to start, protesting, get your chops up. I feel like everything's like 2 months behind. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, like everyone's waiting until it hits their pocketbooks.
We're 90 days in, and again, there's no concerted effort of what they want to happen. I mean, we want Trump all hands off. That should have been happening prior to the election. You should have been talking to your Republican husband. You should have been talking to your Republican neighbor. All this hands up. No, it is you. Well, not me. And they want to create this like diversity within whiteness, but it doesn't exist. Again, this is why black people who do not know each other. I don't know people in Seattle, Washington. I don't know folks in Los Angeles, California. I don't know folks in Tempe, Arizona. But we have something called a linked fate phenomena. You've heard me talk about this before. The linked fate phenomena is that folks that have a historical understanding of social conditions react in lockstep. That's why there's a 92% and an 80%, right? But that's also why the majority of white people, propped up on myth, lies, and propaganda, vote overwhelmingly. Don't forget, y'all, 8 out of 10 Trump voters were white people. So when I say it's a white people thing, you go, well, not me. It's like me saying, like, it's like them saying, if I say, well, dogs bite, they're like, well, not my dog. And it's like, well, dogs still bite. You know what I mean? Like, birds fly. Well, have you seen the penguin? Have you seen an ostrich? It's like, well, birds still fly. And that's the reality. And this is what racialization does. And what whiteness gives you is the ability to have individualism. That's why the signs were all over the place. That's why some folks had demands, some folks were just had gripes, some folks were just worried about their 401k. It is all over the place. And you cannot organize that. But this is why Stokely Carmichael, then later Kwame Ture said, it is easy to mobilize around an issue, but real organizers organize against systems. They still like the system. The system that over surveils us, that poisons us, that undereducates our children, that creates the school to prison pipeline, that misdiagnoses us, that jails us, and then we're the most incarcerated and most exonerated in the same judicial system we're talking about, Riggs. They still like that system. They feel like if we could just kind of get back, but they need to realize that the pre-COVID times aren't coming back. The Obama times aren't coming back. We have to start imagining something new, and you should listen to people who have a radical understanding of the future for everybody, not just you. Because if black people think about it, it's not right. Like we want black people on top. That's not what we want. I haven't met a single black person that has ever said that. I want white people in chains. I want white people not getting jobs. Have you met anybody like that? Like real shit. We're talking real shit right now. Y'all, I have never met a black person that said that.
No, I haven't.
I'm sure they exist.
I'm sure they do too. I'm sure if you can find something on Twitter.
Right. Some ADOS, some FBA brother out there, like, well, we got to put them white folks in chains.
But even honestly, I've never even seen them say that. Like, but
I haven't. That's true. That's a good point.
But you know what? And to every day, it's kind of like I'm like, okay, when are the Democrats going to get their act together? Because the Democrats haven't even really created a platform or say like what you always have been saying, like what do they stand for? Because I feel like a lot of this would be easier if there was a message at the top of like here's what we stand for, here's what the values are, so that you can then start to work on like how your communication strategy of like how do you be affirmative instead of just reactive to everything that like Trump says and be anti. And so that's why I love these conversations and love these our guests that we have on here, because like as I'm hearing, I'm getting like these ideas and strategizing. Like I said, when I was listening to the state of our union, when I was listening to the state of our people, like I was like, oh, there's some nuggets in here. These are some of the brightest minds in organization. Like you just listen to that, like, and I've been able to take it from the business. So like one of the things I posted this morning to our page was Christy Puckett's segment about intent versus impact, right? And wanting to measure the impact, because that's what actually matters. You might create something and say intent. Mayor Burns, for example, his intent was to protect kids, and that was his stated intent. But even if it was as written, the impact would have been like you would have had theaters shutting down for kids because somebody was dressed up as a woman in there, as a character in Peter Pan, right? So something stupid like that. Like that's the impact of like the way these things are written. The impact of these executive orders and these haphazard, things that Congress is putting through, or the Doge. The intent is to, cut fat and cut the waste and be more efficient. But the impact is far greater because they're looking at one line of how much this costs. They're not looking at like, okay, what is the benefit? What is the
these are not fucking accountants, man. These are not accountants
but
looking
like,
at money.
What is the impact?
These are coders.
What is the impact of USA truly in certain things? What is the impact of like, and so that could be applied to everything. I was applied from the business world, right? I literally implement AI and automation And the end of that,
Mm-hmm.
we do a business impact
Impact
analysis to
analysis.
ensure
Yep.
that it's doing what we expected and how much did it affect, right? The
Right.
intent could have been great. The intent could have sounded like the best thing since sliced bread. But if the impact of it was, damn, like you barely got you got a piece of white bread and it's not even toasted. Like, I don't know. Anyways, my point
No,
is,
well, I thought. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say, my point is, is that these conversations we have and this impact, like this, can apply to so many different things. It's like we need to be willing to listen. Our listeners need to be willing to listen. People need to be willing to listen because, like, this is the time to organize. How, like, what are we organizing for? And that's my question to myself, right? Am I
Right.
organizing to create something new because I know I can, and maybe I have a better itch for that than to actually defend whatever or
Institutions.
protect institutions and even Democrats. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I mean, so one thing I want to just, I agree with everything you're saying, first of all. So this was not me going to say, oh, Ron, I don't agree with you. No, I actually do agree with you, Ron. Um, but I think we have to be clear-eyed about the fight that we're in and the folks that we're in this dance with. And I'm not saying, oh, you only gotta talk to black people. That's not what I'm saying. Again, not saying that. But there is a study conducted, I believe it's from Harvard and Pittsburgh, ironically, that said that like white people and this is about workspaces that they have a negative reaction to getting feedback or information from a black person, especially if that person is a manager, director, or higher up person or any position of leadership. Something I can personally attest to. And that becomes a cause for them to retreat, to run away, or to feel like they're being attacked. Now, the problem with connecting closing the gap between what your stated intent of creating this coalition or creating this group of people being willing to do this work versus the reality is that those with the privilege of not knowing and that feeling of I have to now say I'm sorry. I have to now, even if they don't say I'm sorry, I have to now feel like the whole thing I've been doing my whole life is wrong is a weight around my neck. It's an albatross around my neck. And instead of actively trying to unlearn those things and work together with these people who have been surviving me, that's the reality. Like sometimes when we say what we have to get over might be you, that's hard for them to accept because in their mind they're the good ones. But what did I say earlier? But when you every time you say you're a white person, that is a myth. That is a made up thing. And that inherently means that you're right. Even if you're the most progressive, Jane Elliott, right? People love Jane Elliott. She's the brown eyed, blue eyed test. She said a lot of out of pocket shit because in her mind, even though she's trying to unlearn white supremacy and racism, there are still tenets of it that still come out, and black people understand within a millisecond that you're not receptive. So I guess to the point of where do we go from here? Which really wasn't your point, but I'm just now
it
finishing up here
was
because we're kind
it was a question I
of
posed. Yeah.
a question, if you will. But it's who did they see themselves as? I mean, look at my shirt today. I have John Brown, the abolitionist. Famous for Harper's Ferry. Raid. This was somebody that was a he was a traitor to his whiteness, and he stood in solidarity with his humanity. We need people like that. We need people to understand, you know what? I'm a person that believes myself to be white, and that is a made up construct. And again, I didn't create this, but there are things that I still benefit from, even under Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Donald Trump is not attacking and trying to rip down white women. In his office, he still has Caroline Levitt as his press secretary. He still has, these white women on Fox News that still fawn over him. Like you still benefit that you can still move through society in a way that you don't have to worry. So this is where we go back to demands. Is what demands do you have? And it causes me some concern when folks tell me that I just don't want him in the office. I just don't. I want someone else to win. because this society and that lack of and that apathy and that weakness I talked about earlier, that mediocrity will get us this exact same outcome sooner than later. So
if it's not him, then somebody else
it's somebody else.
to take over.
And the folks who are mad about the tariffs and stuff with Trump, I think I said this on a couple episodes ago, they are not saying I'm done with the Republican Party.
Right.
They will make a mental, they'll have some sort of cognitive dissonance. They live in serial cognitive dissonance. They will have some serial cognitive dissonance. Well, let's say, well, that was just Trump in 2024. JD Vance will be better next time.
Right. Well, they got people
Dr.
saying,
Oz. Yeah.
they got people saying like, well, we just got to stick with it and, take one for the team. And, you broke,
You fucking take
motherfucker.
one.
Like, you broke. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
You did this. Like, you fucking, that's the reality. I'm not
unless
telling
you
them
got
I
like
told you so.
unless you got like $5 million, like
I don't know no $5 million motherfuckers.
like,
I know a bunch of 5 million penny motherfuckers. I don't even know if they got that much money.
if you let's just say you're a millionaire, you got $1 million, like you literally went from 1 million to 800,000 to 700,000 this week alone. Like you just went from like feeling pretty good about yourself to like I might be feeling a little bit normal again, like and that's so like
It just
they
proves that racism is expensive. Racism is costly. Donald Trump ran on racism, bigotry, and hatred, and there was a lot of. I mean, for the past 10 years, Raum. He came down that escalator June 17th, 2015, or June 16th, 2015.
Mhm.
It's been a decade.
Well, he knew
People
that.
have spent billions of dollars trying to hyper normalize why all these supposed white collar workers were voting for him, that it was not. And he ran on bigotry, racism, and sexism to say that the reason they voted for him was not racism, bigotry, and sexism. A lot of ink was wasted on pages. A lot of digital print was wasted. A lot of anchors, hot air was wasted on the mics. That, like, what more do you want from us?
Yeah, and he knew that was his strategy. He continues to be his strategy.
Mm-hmm. It's the lowest hanging fruit.
And he got people. It got people out their seats and registered to vote on that side. Like
He sure did.
they were like, oh, that's my guy. And that's a strategy that's working. And we're still wondering like, how did that happen?
It's the Southern strategy, man. Like this, that's the thing. It's the Southern strategy. I
And
said it on.
go ahead.
I said it maybe 7, 8, 9, 10 episodes ago that like he ran on white identity politics. He ran on your whiteness, your straightness, your maleness, your Christianness, your patriotism. That's why they're talking about shutting down, the Blacksonian that we're actually going to be going to in DC not next week, the week after next, because he said they're not teaching patriotic history. They have now wholly succumbed to the idea that there is their history and then there is other people's history, and other people's history is a direct threat to them and their history. Instead of being like, countries have histories, there's bad parts and there's wonderful parts, but all of it will, hopefully we can learn from it to make a better future. No, they need the Disneylandification.
Right. I mean, I grew up knowing history, and even the history I had was somewhat whitewashed in a lot of
Yeah,
ways,
no question.
and watered down. But at no point did I say like, "Oh man, like I hate white people. I gotta
No,
do some crazy shit in revenge or something." Like black people have never done it. Did you imagine? Like
never,
to your point, like
never,
I want to see you in shackles. Like I want to see like all this stuff, and I want to see you suffer. I want to see you hanging from the tree. I want to see you enslaved. I want to see you segregated, drinking
never,
from another water fountain. I want to see you doing all these crazy things. Like no, we haven't. And so,
never.
man,
But that's why it's our projection. Whiteness needs to have a projection. It needs to have their coming force. What I say, their whole identity since before 1619. That's what we brought over here on the White Lion. But since before then, there had to always be an external threat. That's how they were able to galvanize an identity, right? They're coming for us. This is why the us versus them conversation with the trans stuff works, because he was tapping into that colonial idea that us is, he knew who he was talking to, wealthy white men, and the them, that could be the Zulu, the savage, the Aztec, the Palestinian, the Arab. It's the same thing. It's using its colonial mindset.
yeah, and I think, and that's primarily, I think, one of the reasons for the attack on education. There's a correlation between
Correct.
lack of education and racism.
Yep.
People who have less education tend to be more racist. In other words, the less educate,
Mm.
they want to keep you the opposite of woke, right? You know, they want to keep you sleeping, not teaching. I want to hear what you want to say, but
No, you're good.
you know, you kill education, you rewrite history, then I guess somehow, and I have a hard time envisioning how you erase history in this,
Era in the digital era.
yeah, in the digital era. But it also it's going to be the digital era can be reimagined. They can write
It sure
everything.
can.
You can restrict, you know, if I was Comcast or, you know, it's here Spectrum,
Hmm.
I can literally prevent you from going to websites, right? If I was
Yep.
the government, I can have access to those networks and prevent you from going to certain websites. China does it, right?
I was,
And so
or they could just shut down the internet.
yeah, or
Like they
the
could shut down the internet.
which probably will happen at some point as probably more of in the form of a terrorist attack or a major outage. I do believe it's happened.
A false flag. I mean, it's happening. Other countries do it all the time. They'll just shut down the internet for folks, and they'll say, and then folks that have no way of communicating, or they're not prepared to communicate. They don't have satellite phones. They don't have, modes of communication within their community. That is exactly the fascist playbook.
Yeah. So we've had a good conversation tonight, but you know, what should we just talk a little bit about something related to the technology, because they're starting to, and what their
Let's finish up with one
capabilities
more
are.
thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's finish up with one more thing. We did ran long, but you know what? That it was good. You're right. That was a good natural conversation. But yeah, let's finish up with what you got.
So one of the things that happened this week, or that's been happening, is there is at the border, they are confiscating phones of both non-citizens and American citizens, and they
That's
are
right.
asking to look at your phone. They're pointing it to your face, unlocking your phone, going through it. I don't like, you know, looking for anti-Trump, pro, you know, Palestinian, which they equate with pro Hamas,
Anti-Semitic. They
or
say
anti
they're looking
anti.
they're looking for anti-Semitism, as they're saying.
I guess I would probably be considered anti-Semitism, because
No question.
I say that Israel is committing genocide. Yeah, because
Right.
you're killing kids. If you can
Right.
look and see 30,000, 500,000 people get killed, and all these kids getting killed, and you can honestly say that that's not terrorism, then that's on you, not me.
It's on you.
So regardless, that's happening.
Yep.
You know,
And we
get
warned about that
you know,
too.
so get yourself a burner.
Hmm.
Don't, you know, put that. I would probably put my, if I put my phone in the care in the check bags,
Right.
because like your real phone, because you don't know, like, but
Take
here's
off
the,
all your biometrics, because they could just wave your phone in front of your face. So please keep your pins on.
and the amount of surveillance, and Peter Thiel and their companies, Palantir, and the amount of surveillance
Palantir.
that is capable of, at this day and age, I would assume that every American has a file, and it's not somebody
Oh
that's
yeah.
necessarily like, you know, the Raum's doing this, but it's something that's actually logging every single thing that happens. So I would tell everyone to assume that you are compromised, that your
Yep.
phone is being tracked. It is being tracked through cookies, through all kinds of ways that corporations actually, and businesses, when they make you sign privacy policies, like they're tracking your activity, all of those things. And so it's just a few you know, clicks, and the technology exists within, especially Israel, and their technology,
Well, Palantir does
to
their intelligence. Their spying stuff.
spyware. They have spyware, right?
Hmm.
They have spyware that intentionally is not detected by, you know, the antivirus and the that's out there, for example, in the phones, and you know, Apple and Google, and they've been pro privacy in the past, and you know,
They're all bending the
that's
knee
out
right
the,
now.
yeah, they're all been in the knee. So do you really trust them to not let
Nope.
Trump and their cronies into these systems? No, absolutely, they're in there, and
Yep.
they're not making noise this time around.
And then you got little nuts or grape nuts. What's his name? Big balls or whatever you call him. Grape nuts. He's in there. Scrubbing through your data and your information. And little nuts. He's in there just banging around and clicking stuff and pulling stuff in there. But yeah, this story here. So this is an attorney that represents a student protester detained by federal immigration agents. I think his name is
Amir Makled.
Amir Mekled. And uh, yeah, so he's a U.S. citizen, folks. We warned about this too. We said it's not just going to be the immigrants. It's not just going to be then it was the green card holders with Mahmoud Khalil, and then and then it was the Osman from up in Boston. He is an American citizen. He is as American as Donald Trump. Okay, and they detained him for more than 90 minutes, and he was coming back from the Dominican Republic with his family.
And because one of his clients is pro-Palestinian, they were at a protest at the University of Michigan. Just because they were at a protest.
It's
So,
crazy,
how do you think that they know these things? And that's what I'm saying. Like,
right?
and
But
that
he's an attorney. He knew his rights. He didn't give them his phone, but they still held him. And there's certain barriers, right? There's like if you are an American citizen, they can't not let you in the country. You have access and entry into the country, but they can detain you for a little bit. They can't talk to you. They can't take your devices. But if you are a green card holder, they can take your devices and they cannot let you in. And then if you're an immigrant, they can do the whole shebang. And it's wham bam, thank you, man. You don't come in at all, and you're taking a device, and you're probably going to jail if they
Mhm.
wanted to, right?
Mhm.
So, but we have to understand that's the game that we're in. That's why, again, there's folks out there going back to the parade, and I'm not going to hamper on that anymore. There is real life shit happening to black and brown people
Right.
because it's not just the Latino immigrants. This gentleman's not Latino, and just don't forget they're just as throbbed up about Haitian immigrants too. And I don't know if you know this, but Haitians live around other black people. They're going to scoop up people that are not Haitian. So these folks who are it's my drug prices and 401ks, get fucking real. Get fucking real, y'all. Like we have to organize, and the Robert Rules of Order says we have to do this, and we need a quorum. Look, we are in that moment. I don't know what else to tell you. I don't know what else to. I'm not even trying to scare you, but you should not be happy in this moment. You should not be trying to find joy and I'm happy we're out there on the corner and people are honking at me. No, you're not disrupting anything. The point of a protest is to resist and to disrupt the status quo. And if you are not doing that, you are hampering any sort of progress the folks who are actually yearning to breathe free and folks that want liberation. And we don't have time for that. That is why people who come from a oppressed people don't take it serious.
Um.
Sorry.
But no, don't be sorry. That's exactly right. I did want
But look
to.
at this. Look at this crowd. Here we go. It's
I
right.
did want to.
Signal gate.
Yeah.
Don't
So,
forget.
and here's why I bring that up,
Yeah.
because, and I wanted to explain to people on their phones. You have your phone, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The what this administration and our the people in charge of our national security have done is things their cyber hygiene is worse than a small business. And I'm talking about, I have clients that literally have with like device control, right? Like, think about it as you cannot you can't join, let's say you can't join a chat such as I don't know if you're familiar with Microsoft Teams, right?
Yeah, I got team. Mm-hmm.
In your organization, if unless your phone is registered, secured through a specific type of application, then you would not be able to join that Teams chat,
Correct.
right? So that's starting one.
Mm-hmm.
Signal does not have, and you actually, if they had that control, if you're using a personal phone, you can't actually have that control. If it's not registered with the IT system, let's say the government's IT system, then you can put whatever you want on your phone, i.e., Signal.
Mm.
That's an application that does not have what we call access control, meaning that anyone can invite anybody. In Teams, you can't invite in a secure environment. You cannot invite anybody. You can only invite people in your organization,
Right. Right.
and or you can even set it to not even that. Like, and so if you have allow an application, if you allow a personal phone one, if you allow you
Mm-hmm.
to install an application that has no access control, that can invite anybody, then you can one make mistakes, Two, if
Right,
it's a
right,
personal
right.
two, if it's a personal phone, you might not even have a code on your phone. You might
Mm,
not you might not, and so you could have your mistress who's a Russian spy, Chinese spy.
a honeypot.
Hey, put your face in front of it,
Mm-hmm.
hop
And then
in
they could
hop
also
in the signal.
and then I heard like they could also track like your keystrokes. Like they could track like what you're actually typing or
They
putting in
can you
too.
can put it you can put spyware. There's
Mm-hmm.
less detection methods on a personal phone than if you had a government phone, right? So,
Mm.
and this is just the tip of the iceberg, right? So, what they've done is uh,
Well, Rom, it's only the
astonishingly.
best. It's only the best people.
So, this is some mediocre ass shit because they don't even. They're so ignorant. They don't even. They're overconfident, like always. They think that
Always hubris.
oh, we're going to use Signal. Signal has in the best one of the best end
End to end
encryption,
encryption.
which doesn't mean anything if you have access to the phone itself and you can just look at it
Come
and see
on.
it, right? If you have spyware to the device, right? So
Fucking idiots.
and they know that this is dangerous because they could do the same technology that they use on citizens, and ever since 9/11, like the amount of things
Yep.
that they can do to our phones. So
Mm-hmm.
if they could do it to like, I'm telling you, and now that foreign, uh, governments know that this is something that they're doing, oh, they're capitalizing.
No
Oh, they're
question.
capitalizing, and there's so many different ways, and espionage. All this stuff is real. It's not a everything's not a TV show.
No.
Like
No.
I promise you, go back and watch Homeland. Like all this stuff is like entirely feasible.
This is at this point it's life imitating art.
Mhm.
That's what it is. And again, going back to my first point when I one of my first diatribe, which I'll not regurgitate here, folks just don't believe it.
Yeah,
And it is this, and you've been hearing me saying this a lot. We as black folks, we don't got to get shot to know the lead is hot. And some folks just are unwilling to believe the shit that we're saying right now, whether it be security wise, whether it be about technology, whether it be culturally, whether it be about structural, societal structural things. It's like, no, this can't be happening. And what did I say to even to that guy Mark, the MAGA guy, is that if we can't accept something, we can't resist something.
yeah, and what what I'll leave it at on that is that it's going to come back and bite this country in the ass so hard because
I mean, we're already
it's just
compromised. We're
not
compromised.
a mistake. I mean, it's a
Right.
mistake of epic proportions. Like, it's not. This isn't Hillary's email server. I understand. Actually, I don't know if I
No.
mentioned. I don't know if I
Yeah.
mentioned this on the show, but like, I know the woman who actually deployed that server. It wasn't with malice. That wasn't
Yeah.
to hide things.
I mean, yeah, I'm not right. It's
It
not this.
it's
Like that's
not
the thing.
that.
Like,
And
yeah,
this
it's
is
not
like that's
this,
the email
y'all.
because
Like this false equivalent, false. I mean, yeah, she was reckless, whatever. But like, this ain't that, y'all. Like, and they had 4 years worth of, uh, it was over 18 hours worth of committee hearings. Like,
and
this
what
is crazy.
and once you're compromised, especially when you have personal email and things, personal communications, when you're compromised in the way that they
Yeah.
were using their stuff, he was using his Gmail, they were using personal
Yep.
phones,
Yep.
they're inviting random news reporters, random in one chat out of 20. They have a chat, they have a single
Out
fucking
of
chat
20 signals, y'all.
for every world conflict and everything that's going on. I'm telling you, man. And
And they're
so
probably talking, and then also like, look at this, we're gonna go do that. I mean, because it's also a lot of like bro culture in there too, like a lot of like, oh, can you believe it? We're gonna drop the bombs here, and it's
high five, yeah, let's get a beer.
high five,
But
punch, fire, American
my
flag.
my point is once you're compromised, it is hard to get out of, and I know that it's going to come back and bite us anyways and bite this country.
Yep.
So one more thing that happened this week, in my world, and actually in our world,
Right.
so Donald Trump signed an executive order to investigate his appointed CISA director, right?
Chris
And
Krebs. Yeah.
yes, and so that is the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, which I'm very familiar
Mm-hmm.
with. It was created. It was
Mm-hmm.
actually created during Donald Trump's term, and the idea was to try to get all the government agencies on the same page in terms of like cybersecurity, setting the standards. It was very much a mess before, and it still very much is a mess in a lot of ways across different federal agencies. But to help unify it, but then they also helped private businesses in the private sector to give them guidance on like, here's the things what you should do to be actually harden your networks and your systems. So they gave a
Mm.
lot of guidance. They collaborated with a lot of other organizations in the space, some of the brightest minds, and created something that was great because there was a while where people just getting, companies were, and still are, but like getting just attacked left and right, ransomware, all kinds of craziness. And they actually built, and so he was replaced by Jen Easterly, who also took this organization to the next level. Of course, she quit on like day one and she resigned,
Mm.
which I probably would have too if I was in her position. But so what happened with Christopher Krebs is at the 2020 election after Trump lost, Trump wanted him to say that there was a compromise of the voting systems. And
Mm-hmm.
he basically came out and said that, well,
This
there
is
was
the
nothing
most
found. It was the
secure
most secure election
election. That's what he
to
said
date.
verbatim. This is the most secure election we've ever had. I remember that.
Because they had a group within their agency to actually focus on preventing election
Mm.
interference in many, which comes in many forms, whether it's tampering with the systems, whether it's foreign entities involving themselves into our politics, which in America does all the time. Um,
Mm.
and he didn't like that. He didn't like that he said that. And so now here we are today. He's now opened up an executive order, and they're going after this individual directly with an investigation. And you know, and also not only that, so he now works for a company called Sentinel One, which I'm a customer of. I know Sentinel One very well. There's another. They have a competitor called CrowdStrike. There's like
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
two main players in the game besides Microsoft, and both of these are within government agencies. But they've also stripped the clearance from everyone at this company. I mean, this is like one of the main players in the space. Meaning, to me, what this means is that like people who are able to support government agencies
Mm-hmm.
um now
Mm.
no longer can. So can you imagine an attack happening and then you can't escalate, or you getting you're trying to design architecture for an agency and you can no longer have those conversations. You can no longer you can't even monitor, like literally if you don't
That's
have
a-
the clearance, they can no longer actually do their job to like monitor real time, to actually look at these systems and the data that comes from them. So he could
I
be.
mean,
They
it's
could.
almost like they
They
want that to happen.
well.
You
Here's the
know, I
here
mean, because
intent versus impacts. It,
hello, okay.
maybe what you said would have, but I actually think I don't think Donald Trump's that smart.
Well, no, I don't think he's doing
Like
any of this shit. I don't,
his intent is just
none of this shit is
to
Donald
go
Trump.
after and just the retribution, but the impact.
He just doesn't want to go to fucking jail. That's I mean, yeah, I think his petty grievances is with Chris Krebs, but I think the deeper underlying security shit is not him.
But the impact is probably far worse. And
Right,
but these
right,
are
right.
affecting businesses. Same with these law firms.
Correct.
He's getting
Hmm.
retribution, but there's actually
Yes,
things that's happening
correct.
that people can no longer even bring their cases to the court and represent their clients. Like that's insane.
Right.
But yeah,
I mean, we have a Mad King right now. We have Game of Thrones style. We have the Mad King.
you raise a good point. Like, is this on purpose? And so anyways, long story short, like this is like a first time, like an executive order, the DOJ, they're going after an individual to investigate, they say. And it is a
But like, investigate
escalation.
what?
Yeah, like, are you going to put out some evidence that there was
You know what I mean?
that there
Like,
was
cause that's
something
the thing
wrong?
about
Like, did you?
I was saying before we start recording, like the thing about fascists, you know, they always go through two ways, right? They come through the judiciary and they come through the electoral system, right? So if we think about prior to this election, it was Donald Trump capturing a Supreme Court who will do whatever for him. He's granted full immunity. And then we think about the electoral system. It was disinformation, voter suppression. Then on top of that, you know, low voter turnout, right? Most all fascists get voted in with low voter turnout. And then when they come in, I remember I'll never forget. Allison Riggs came to our kickoff meeting last year in January, and I remember saying this to the crowd of people who looked at me, rolled their eyes, and yawned. Here he goes again. I said, if Trump wins, the first thing he's going to come after aren't y'all. It's the loudmouths like me. It's the attorneys. It's the people who are willing to push back, the actual resistors. That, and again, this is my last piece about the parade. That's why the parade wasn't, it didn't threaten the system. That's why police were happy to be there. No militarized police, no tear gas. You were not threatening the system. They weren't educating anybody. They weren't pushing back on anything. It was on a Saturday. It was a beautiful day. That's it. But the fascists must go through them first. Then they go through academia. We're seeing with Columbia. We're seeing with, Claudine Gay and MIT and UPenn, right? Then it goes to the attorneys. The guy we was talking about on the flight. Chris Krebs is an attorney, right? Like they have to not disenfranchise. What's the word I'm thinking of? They have to delegitimize these people because the only law is them. They are the law, and this is how the fascists we go from a rule of law country to a rule by law country. A rule of law country is basically we all have to play by the same rules. Chris Krebs saying that this is the most secure election ever. It makes sense. He has his receipts. He's talking about it. He's showing people. Blah blah blah. Donald Trump is fucking crazy. Now we're in a rule by law system where it matters who is the leader, because that person becomes the law.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have these high price firms like what was that one
Paul Weiss.
they just get Paul Weiss, and then another one Wilmer Hale. I think they're actually pushing back. And then another one
Parker Coy. I forget.
Parker,
pushing back.
Right.
But and I've been to that Paul Weiss.
That's how it works.
So Paul Weiss has like 30-foot ceilings.
God, yeah.
And this is this is the firm that like that literally could actually fight. They just chose to say we're gonna do 40 million. It's pish posh. We'll do the 40 million.
We got them. We outsmarted Trump.
Meanwhile, some of these other ones, they like they'll give them the same price, 40 million. It's like that's like half our revenue. What
is that pro bono work for? What is that pro bono work for?
Yeah, and it's like what? Yeah, exactly. Like pro bono work for people who don't like. Okay, and so
right.
I think
this is how it happens. And so I said that in January, and I meant that shit. And now, and you said it earlier, like I told you so. I take no joy in being right about everything. Like I'm not right about everything, but I'm like maybe 95% right about everything that I predicted over the past 6 years with my study of history, my study of fascism, my study of totalitarian regimes, my study of authoritarianism. 95%. I mean, people will still tell me, "You're hurting my feelings. Don't tell me that. I'm doing enough. I'm tired." Like, listen, we're in that moment. Whatever you said. If I was during the Holocaust, I was during the rise of the fall of the Weimar Republic, or during the time of the Confederacy, or whatever you thought you were doing.
No,
you're doing it right
now. That's exactly right. Like, yes.
So get the fuck out my face with these signs and balloons and bouncy houses.
Yeah. So this was a good one.
It was a good one, man.
This was good. I think we can probably wrap it up, but I think again, if you are still listening, like, share, follow, retweet,
tell 100 people,
give it a heart. Yep. And yeah, we appreciate you.
Well, the kids, they're not doing this no more.
I don't even know how to do I don't even know how to do when they do.
That's the old school thing. Now it's this.
Oh,
that
you skipped one. What's
the other one?
Don't they do something like where I'm throw up game?
No, it's this.
This is our generation. They do something like it's like I don't know. My wife told me the other I can't do it, man.
Well, but now it's this.
Somebody go screenshot of me like they throwing up sign. What is that?
I'm in a black gang.
But yeah, the last thing I want to leave people is like, who gonna stop? Who gonna stop them, huh? Like, seriously, who gonna do it? No one's gonna stop any of these people. They can do it. They literally have no intention of leaving this space because that's why they're so brazen about the things that they're doing. They don't think that they will ever be held accountable, and maybe through a pardon. But I don't foresee these folks leaving and ever intending to lose power. So when we talk about 2026 and waiting to 2026 and the tide is turning and people are feeling it, I don't think that's not one. It's not resistance. Two, it's living in la la land. So yeah, I mean, maybe I just shift my gears into like, rebuild. Let's rebuild. Let's be ready to rebuild I don't know.
Let's start thinking of something better. Let's start if again, if you could reimagine the society, what would it look like? At this point, we got to start having those conversations. It'd be if my daughter broke her elbow, we could just go to a place and get a cast set with no problem, and then you'll be able to have access to food, clean water, beds. I mean, the necessities. I'm not saying you go back to some sort of like agrarian town where it's kind of like settler with like crops and stuff. But what I'm saying is there's a level of like we can imagine these systems better for masses of people. And guess what? There are already playbooks out there. The Black Panther Party had a 19-point plan.
Mm-hmm.
Still exists. Martin Luther
Yes, sir.
King's folks feel like it's been wiped off the internet. One of the final books I read last year was his final book that he wrote, Where Are We Headed? To Community or Chaos. He has plans in there. So again, there's folks that have laid out the blueprints for y'all. But guess what? They're melanated. Guess what? They were oppressed. Guess what? They didn't have access to the internet. Guess what? They didn't have access to vote. Guess what? They didn't have access to high paying jobs. Guess what? They didn't have access to GPS. Guess what? They didn't have access to healthcare. So, like, if they could do all that, but because black people are of abundance, that's who we are. I say, if you're listening to this and you care about a future that is revelatory and is of abundance and for everybody to have access with it, listen to our elders, please. Again, I'm not telling you I told you so. I'm just telling you where to go.
Yep.
That's all I got tonight, folks.
All right. That was a good episode. Thank you everyone for again watching and supporting. Tell them real quick who we have on the show on Sunday.
Yes, we have Franklin Ellis. He is the hold on, I got his title right here. He is the Associate Dean and Director of Inclusive Communications at Furman. Oh, Liz will kill me, but no, he's done a lot of political discussions. We're going to talk to him about the state of DEI, where is it going, and what we can do to I think one of our first conversations on the show when it became the two-man team was about DEI right early on in January. And you're kind of like hey, let the title go as long as they're keeping the people in the program. Well, we could talk about all that stuff through because what's more important is the impact,
Impacts. Right.
not the intent. Because at the end of the day, black folks gonna thrive,
Exactly.
and we gonna make it do what it do. So it's gonna be a good conversation.
All right. I'm looking forward to it. I'm gonna go and go to bed.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna go
I'm
and
gonna
go
take
to
a
bed.
shit. Okay, all right, great, bro. Great, man. I got.
I'm gonna
All
go
right,
get a
y'all.
beer. I'm gonna go get a
I
beer and drink a little whiskey.
hey,
And
right.
I'm like, I ain't doing shit tonight. I'm going to bed.
Well, I'm your co-host, Payron Baxter.
I'm your co-host, Raum Sandoval. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you. Have a good night. Peace.
Peace.